Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. You've hit the spot. The place where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Put your thinking caps on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. We are at the spot, your favorite place, the best podcast on the planet. The location where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Today, we are in the United Kingdom with Heather Garbutt. She has 40 years of experience in psychotherapy, but what she has found is that she wants to make the transition from being a psychotherapist to being a coach. I'm going to ask her what are the defining differences. Her focus is on relationships. Brains, everything is a relationship. Business, love, children, animals, even a personal, intimate relationship that one has with themselves. We are going to look at that, and we're going to ask her some fun facts because she's also a podcaster. So what does that mean, and what does that look like in her world? Hello, Heather, and welcome to On the Edge.
Thank you for having me here, April. It's lovely to be with you.
I'm excited. I've been watching all of your clips and the great tidbits of information that you've been sharing on Facebook. Tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Okay, well, I'm a 64-year-old woman. I'm in partnership with my lovely man, Ian. We've been together for 7 years, I think, this July. Yeah. And we met through Calling in the One, the coaching program, Calling in the One, which I was doing. We've been together ever since.
Well, that's pretty sexy and that's pretty romantic. But why did you decide to leave a very, and I'm just putting it out there, lucrative psychotherapy to go into a little bit more conservative, niche focus into coaching?
And that's really interesting you see it that way around, because I see psychotherapy as the more conservative way of thinking. Coaching is so much bigger. You need to do all the digging and delving into the past in coaching, of course you do, but actually you're future focused. And that's what I discovered when I did it for myself. It's like, oh my God, the world's so much bigger than I thought.
Okay.
And I want that for other people, for their hearts. There's so much more possible.
So not, giving talk therapy or psychotherapy a bad name, but you feel that that's too niche focused. It doesn't prepare you for future. It just is more restorative and helps you recover from things that you've experienced in your past.
Yes, I think it helps you understand and identify and be kinder to yourself. I don't want to give it a bad name either, because it's been a really vital part of my life. I probably wouldn't be alive today without it. Let's put it that way. But the thing that I really see as the difference is you can get stuck in therapy with telling the same old stories. The victimized stance. And I'm not saying, oh God, we've all had really bad things happen to us at different times in our lives. A lot of people have had really bad childhoods, and that needs addressing, absolutely. But we don't want to stay there. And the patterns that we set up in that early life can lead us to have a sort of blueprint for the rest of our lives.
I know. People fall into that same old rhythm.
Yeah, they do.
Because it's familiar, even dating, you find women that have been in less than productive relationships, and it's like a magnet. They're just pulled to that again because it's familiar. They know what to go through. They don't want to challenge themselves to break out and find something different because it's scary, Heather.
It is. It very much is. And it's more than that. It's like maybe they can't even see anything different. And they could start off, to see the next partner. They could start off, see the next partner as very different. And the partner may be very different. But if the woman, in this case, we're talking women, is holding the same pattern within her, she will cultivate that person to fit the other side of her jigsaw piece. I know, it's scary. And that's the bit that I really love, that we can change.
So how do we change? Where do we even start?
Okay, shall I give you a little bit of an example? I'll use me
Absolutely.
rather than any clients for confidentiality reasons. It's better. So I was in hospital as a child, and I learned two things from being this about 2 years old. One is just to hold on to the next person that comes to look after you. And the other is that I'm really essentially all alone. So I have that as my blueprint. Even though my parents were incredibly well-intentioned and loving, they didn't have the emotional understanding to see what the effect would be on me. You know, we're talking 60 years ago, so it wasn't in the zeitgeist then. There wasn't the paradigm for thinking about children as emotional beings, you know. So I don't blame them at all, and really don't blame anybody because you know, for their parental things, because they probably don't know any better. Mostly people don't know any better. They do what's done to them. So
Absolutely.
my parents were ignored, you know, as children. So they didn't know how not to ignore me. So I go into my relationship life essentially not knowing how to be together. And I go into my relationship life not knowing that I can choose who's a good fit for me. What I do is wait to be chosen, wait for the next one to come along. I'm not like that now, but I was like that for most of my earlier life.
Well, when did you, when did you wake up out of the fog? What was your aha moment?
I think it was when I did Calling in the One. It made me see that things could be different. What happened in the beginning of it was you look at the patterns you've had in relationships, and it really opens things out for you. So you can see. So I would choose men that were emotionally unavailable, possibly long distance, because, you know, when I was in hospital, my family were 30 miles away.
Okay.
So that fitted as well.
Oh, wow.
Um, I know, yeah. And I would choose people who would choose me, whether they were right for me or not. So reiterating that. So learning and calling in the one, what that pattern was,
I'm sorry, you
then
said
track.
it's calling in the womb or calling in the word? I'm not hearing what you're saying.
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm not very clear. Calling in the one.
Calling in the one.
Yeah, the one that is going to be the one for you to love for the rest of your life,
Okay,
hopefully.
perfect. Now, wait, let me dial back just so that we can clear all that up. Calling in the one, is it relationship focused? Is it a retreat? What
Yeah.
is it calling in the one?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's a book written by Katherine Woodward Thomas, and I'm a trained coach with her now. And we use that book as a workbook. You can use it as a standalone workbook for yourself. You can read it and do the exercises. It will really open your perspective. I chose to do the book, the course, and have coaching because by the time I realized what was going on, I thought, I've got to have everything to stop this pattern. Because at that point, I was 58. I don't want another Valentine's Day waking up alone.
But
Certainly not.
what I don't get, and just so that I'm clear here, is being a psychotherapist. I mean, you go down to the nitty gritty.
You do.
Why was it hard for you to see the patterns and break them for yourself? Why did you have to have this outside jolt?
I think it's a good question. I think it was a Valentine's Day, and I woke up on Valentine's Day. It was 2016, and I thought I'm never ever going to wake up alone on Valentine's Day again.
Gotcha.
It's like, you know, I'd been dating a few guys, and none of them were working out, and they all felt a bit lackluster, you know. But still, I would get hooked into trying to make it work, and I just couldn't. And it was that intention, you know, I set myself a soul level intention. This is never going to happen again. And then I opened up my emails, and there in the email was, do you want to create a miracle in your love life? The
Wow.
hell I do. Yeah.
Wow. Now, were you married before?
Yes, I've been married. I was married, I think, for about 15 years. We parted and separated for a long time, and then did the paperwork later. So it's hard to know exactly how long we were married. But
Do you have children?
no, we didn't have children.
Okay.
No.
So you're in this relationship and you figure out this is not my soulmate. This is not for me. We're going to take a different direction. But what you had to do is, again, you had to pull back the layers and you had to identify and figure out what it was about you, how to love you first before that you pour that into another individual. Because we have expectations, Heather, and you know that. And that's the worst thing sometimes I think you can do, is because you overpromise and underdeliver with the expectation that someone else is going to show up and rescue you.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
And a lot of people go through this manifestation stuff. Okay, I'm a manifester too, but you can manifest yourself some drama.
Yeah, absolutely. Manifesting, you've got to be really specific.
Yes, you
absolutely do. Detailed.
That's
because
right.
if you could say, let's look at it in a sort of more lumpen term. I'd like to lose weight. I'd like to lose some weight. I'd like to lose 2 stone. And if you don't say, through wonderful, healthy methods that are gradual and easy and relaxed, then you might just get run over and lose a leg. There's 2 stone gone, or I don't know how many pounds that is, but you have to be really specific. So if you're looking for the love of your life, you have to create a vision that is really clear and an intention that's really clear, and list all the qualities that you want. And then when you look at those qualities, you reflect and see if those qualities are in you and if you're able to deliver those in return. And in your vision, you look at who you're being in that vision and measure that up. So a vision would be, say, an ideal day. So client recently, an ideal day was walking on the South Bank in London with her true love, with his arm around her shoulder. They go for dinner. He's arranged everything. They get a dinner on a balcony overlooking the Thames. It's absolutely exquisite. And he's holding her hand. He's looking in her eyes. He's treating her like a queen. So that's the vision. So get her to really feel who she is in that vision. And she feels like a different woman from the one she is now. So how do you get from here to there? And the first piece is, what was he doing in that vision? How was he being with me? What was his attitude to me? What were his values with me? And that's what you start to do with yourself.
Okay. All right. That's good. And try to block out all of the naysayers and all the negativity of past relationships, because that's what people will do. I have a dear friend, and she's a widow now. And she says, oh, I'll never get married again, or I'll never. Well, I wouldn't want my husband to get married again either. I'd probably haunt the bitch, but but seriously, I want him to live a full, happy life. And that doesn't mean that you're stuck in one lifetime. Me personally, I believe we have lived many lifetimes, and we will live many more. And there will be people that will travel with us, and there will be people that will drop off. So what we have to do is stay focused and centered on who we are, what our dreams are, what our purpose is. And that's not selfish. That's clarity.
No.
Wouldn't you agree?
Essential. It's absolutely essential. If you just go through life pleasing other people or doing what you imagine other people want you to do, you turn yourself into a corkscrew, and they've got nobody there to love because you're so contorted and anxious, focused on them to be your everything. They turn into a sort of parental figure to your helpless self. And you open yourself up to abuse. And as you say, drama, if you do that, you need to come back and be your own parent first. Particularly if, like me and many others that I see who've been emotionally neglected as children, you need to develop a lovely mom inside, a lovely dad inside, a mom who wants to spend time with you, wants to give you gifts that you really want, wants to speak sweetly to you, wants to be affectionate with you, so many things.
As you speak to me, number one, I see the joy in your life exuding out of your pores. But secondly, you close your eyes and you go into a dreamlike state for a second. You transport yourself somewhere else. Are those the journeys that you take your clients on, to be able to close their eyes and to imagine and to feel and do the breath work and, really engage in that moment?
I absolutely do.
It's absolutely wonderful. It's transformative. And I felt that I was there with you. You were there with me. We were creating a scene. And it's like a movie. Brains, you can be the character actor in your own screenplay. You can rewrite the script. So I see that this is kind of almost meditative, breath work, visualization, imagination, creativity. But it implants something in your mind that creates longevity, something that you can recall.
Yes, absolutely. And it also gives you a sense of, we call it the future you, but it's at the same time, it's the past you. It's the you that would have been, the qualities that you would have had if all of the cross currents of traumatic events in your life hadn't happened. The innocent child that could love and be open is right there in that moment, wide open, but in a mature mind and a mature body.
But in all honesty, you've got to have been through some things to be able to really appreciate this. Sometimes people will go through things because it's trendy or a girlfriend told them that they might need this. But you really need to be able to show up, to process, to understand, and to value what you are about, because this is a rite of passage. This is opening the floodgates to the next part of your life. You and I are women of a particular age. We're not going to be guaranteed this amount of years again. They teach us how to die at a certain age. They do not teach us how to continue to live. What would you say to a person that's stuck right now, Heather?
I think it might depend what sort of stuck. But if we say it's a woman who's been around the block in relationships a few times, almost given up on relationships because she's too afraid to be hurt again, this would be perfect for her, because we would work on the patterns that she got into it with. We'd change the blueprint inside, give her a whole different set of ways of being with herself. I hate the word tools, but there are tools, there are techniques that you can learn that really help you to be different.
Talk about the future energy. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, really focus on the future and what you need to do to get there. And we do the emotional work and the mental work to get there. And we do the practical work. It's no good doing all this work if you've got no time in your week to have a date and you've got no room in your house to receive somebody.
Right. Now, let's talk about that for a minute. Bring in sexy back. Okay, really. Let's talk about that, because if I see another woman in a big t-shirt, yoga pants, and Birkenstocks,
I know.
Okay.
I know. She's hiding.
Or if I see another guy with those same old, jeans, never see you in a button down, never see you make the effort to make yourself alluring and attractive, that smell good, to put a little lipstick on there to make somebody want to kiss your lips. Those things are a part of the relationship. It is, it's the chase. And now with online dating, with all of these different apps, with artificial intelligence, with gender identity changing, relationships have taken a turn. And what we are showing our children in these relationships to build another world or continue with the world that we have are so different. Where do you see us 10, 15, 20 years from now in this thing called relationships?
I think we're not going to be in the same paradigms our parents and we were brought up with. I have a feeling that because we're evolving all the time, there will be relationships for particular times of life.
Mm.
You know, we were only, 100 years ago living till 40 or 50. Now we're living till 80 or 90. The chances of really growing and changing at the same rate with the same person throughout all of that time are remote. And you may actually grow into wanting different things. You know, one of you might get to retirement, say, and want to go and see what it's like to live in Hong Kong. And the other one says, no, south of France is more my bag. And, that's really big locations. I'm making that as a point, but it might be the subtle things. Like, I want a quiet life. Well, I want to really go and live some more. I want to climb some mountains. I want to do some emotional work. I want to have some experiences. I want to write a book. Oh, do you? Oh, that isn't going to work.
Right. Or again, midlife crisis where someone just wants to completely do something different, or
Yeah.
your attraction or affection or fondness for one another has changed, because that happens too. And what I've always learned in my relationship and my marriage from day one was I always told my husband that I kept a little bit in reserve for me, because life is not contingent solely on you. We didn't come here on the ark, and we're not twins. We have our own individual journey. We have our own individual path. And if we are blessed enough to be able to walk this path together, it's fine. But if not, I still need to be able to hold on to who April Mahoney is. And you still need to be, who you are as an individual, because people get so convoluted, they forget who they are and what their dreams and desires are. And they latch on so tight that they become completely destroyed when that person divorces them, or that person, finds a fondment for someone else. It completely destroys them. So what do you say to the person that's in that relationship that is not going to be together and they're going to consciously uncouple?
I think it's a really brilliant thing to do. I mean, I think something that can happen is if you meet, you marry, or you stay together, you have children. We're talking the traditional paradigm here. There comes a time where if you don't work on your relationship, you do grow apart. And you become sort of co-parents, co-workers in the task of bringing up your children. And that's when you really lose touch. You can do work to really come back together. You can work on that. But if you're going to let go healthily, let go kindly, let go fairly. If you can possibly do it using something called divorce, or one of the cooperative methods of divorce, then do. But do your emotional work so that if you do end up going to court for any reason, you don't let the lawyers let you be adversarial, because they'll love it.
Right.
They love it because that's where their money is. No, I don't want to make lawyers out to be entirely bad people, because there are a lot of family lawyers who really are good, but it doesn't take much for things to tip, particularly when we're parting. Sorry, forgive me.
I was saying married couples don't make divorce lawyers rich.
No, they don't, exactly. And when we're parting, we're at our most raw. So we're likely to get regressed. We're likely to get triggered by the slightest thing. If my husband had said he wanted our dog, I would have been massively triggered. That would have been a really big deal for me. Fortunately, he said, in his golden repair, because he loved the dog as much as me, he was generous, and he said, no, you have the dog. It's fine. You have the dog. And that really went a long way to making our divorce comfortable and sweet, and everything was fair with money. It went well on all of those practical terms. We didn't have children, so we don't have to see each other. Our relationship ran its course, and we parted amicably.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about calling in the one and finding new love again. So you're there, you're doing the work, and right in the very same room is someone that shares a mutual interest, an attraction, a fondness for you. when did what was your aha moment then? What was that like? It was like, this is interesting.
Oh, sorry, I might have misled you. He didn't do Calling in the One.
Oh,
I met him while I was doing Calling in the One.
okay. All right. But still, you met him. So when you met him,
I did.
what was your
Well,
aha moment? What was some of the things that you had pulled from that and you said that this is worth a go?
Well, he was so candid from the get-go. Our first date was coffee in a nice little pub in Hungerford in the UK. Walk by the canal. I had my dog with me. He said he wasn't sure because my dog was a white poodle. He wasn't sure about going out with a woman with a white poodle because he's a bit more macho than that, you know. But when he met the dog, he was sort of up to my waist. He said, "Oh, that's not a tiny French poodle. That's a big dog. I can cope with that. I can cope with walking with a big dog." And he was really candid. He was good with the dog. He was affectionate, not overly, just a kiss on the cheek, hello, because we talked a lot. I loved his voice. I loved the smell of him. If anybody was a bit too pushy, it was me because I wanted to see if the kissing would work, so I kissed him first.
I love it. I love it.
I was a bit forward.
I love it.
But while we were walking, my dog is a bit dippy. I mean, he was brilliant inside, very clever dog inside. You take him outside, he would follow any pair of legs and think they were mine. So as Ian and I were walking along the canal talking, Ted followed a pair of legs over the bridge to the other side of the canal, about 4 foot deep, something like that. So I called him, thinking he would come back the way that he went, but no, he jumped in the canal. So he was standing on his hind legs with his paws on the edge and his chin just above his paws, sort of going, "Oh my God, what the hell happened?" Just frightened to death. He's shocked. So Ian ran over the bridge to get him out. And while he was going, he took his phone from his breast pocket in his shirt, tucked it in the back pocket of his jeans, leaned over, pulled out 25 kilos of dog with one arm, put him on the bank, ran back so that Ted could shake himself. So dog was happy, Ian was happy, phone was safe, I was in raptures. Wow, what a guy.
I know, look at that. He's got an S on his chest.
Absolutely. And his white linen shirt was still as white as when he went over there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a keeper. That's a keeper. So let's fast forward to your podcast. What is the premise of your podcast? When is it broadcast? And what are you looking to pour into your listeners?
Okay, well, it's everything to do with relationships. I tend to ask people, what would you like me to write about? And so I do the writing first, and then I make a podcast of it. I do lives on Facebook. There are 2 groups, Calling in the One, official coach-led group, and Conscious Uncoupling, official coach-led group. And I tend to put them up in there. I put them up on my personal page too. So at the moment, I've been running a sequence on desire. So it's sort of some of the stages that we've talked about today in a bit more depth for people who are single and who are looking for true romantic, committed love. So that's one part of it. I've been doing things like deal makers and deal breakers, what to look for. If he wants to live in Hong Kong and you want to live in New York, that's probably not going to work. Long distance relationships can work, but they work if you're avoidant and you just want that much of a relationship rather than a real deep connection. I've done some more what to look for on your first date, questions to ask yourself. Really, what are your values? What are their values? Do they walk their talk? Because they'll tell you they're wonderful. Of course they will. They're trying to sell themselves to you if you're a woman worth having. But you just got to see if they can walk their talk. If they're not nice to the waiter, that tells you a lot straight off. If they're stingy with their tip, that tells you a lot straight off. If they get into
negative about their mother, that's a key red flag.
Yes, or their exes. If they're bitter about their exes, because that sometimes comes up in conversation in the first few dates. You really feel for who they are, and notice how you feel in your body. That's another piece. I've been doing one very recently on being an empath in relationships. So the empaths are the people who look after everybody else in the world. They feel for everybody else in the world. And the world is a good place for having them in it. But when an empath gets out of balance, there's nobody there. They're just a person who's taking care. They project their feelings, and they say, I do too. This is a pattern, one of those early patterns. Project my feelings onto somebody else, look after it in them. They get to be very needy and demand more and more. I have nothing left.
Well, Heather, what do you say to the individual that just wants a booty call?
If you can handle that, you do it.
If you can manage it. What are some of the rules of engagement in those types of relationships?
Well, if it's just a booty call, I think it's...
I love the way you say that with a British accent. I love it.
I think it's important to get to know them, to make sure you're safe.
Right.
Yeah. It's important just to take account of yourself as a woman, because our hormones will hook us in. You get a lot of oxytocin around sex, so you're probably a little bit more at risk because your body will be attached to them, even if you think they're only okay for sex. So there might be rules like we always meet in a candlelit room. There might always be dinner first. Might never be. You could say there's never alcohol involved or any drugs if you don't want that. You could say, and I want at least half an hour afterwards to cuddle and have some talking. Things that make it nice for you are the things that you really want.
So that you don't feel cheap and devalued.
Yeah.
This is just this is a weekend, every Tuesday type of deal. Don't destroy someone else's marriage and their home and all of that kind of stuff. But if this is just something that you enjoy having sex with an individual, I don't think that there should be any shame associated with that, as long as there are rules to conduct.
Yeah, and obviously health protection and all of that stuff.
Of course, absolutely.
Goes without saying. But I agree. I don't see anything wrong with that either. So long as you can take care of yourself and get good support with your heart, because we women, we're so blooming susceptible. We fall in love very easily. Let's
catapult it to another different situation here. These polyamorous relationships, oh boy, they're popping up everywhere. Look, just to keep one person happy, satisfied, fed, amused is work. But now people are having, and again, it's different for different couples, they are having sister wives and, again, polyamorous relationships. How do you even, I don't even know if my husband would ask, if he asked me, I would probably scratch his eyes out. I told you I'd haunt her if I was dead and came back. But how do you suggest people even enter into those type of relationships, because they're very prevalent now, especially with millennials?
Well, I think it's really important to research it first. I mean, it sounds a bit crazy, but really look at the ways that people do set things up. There's myriad ways. But if there's somebody who's the primary relationship and you're a secondary to that, that's one set of rules that you could establish. And it does take an awful lot of consciousness to make everybody safe and emotionally safe. I mean, as well as everything else. You need to have some clear ground rules, and you need to have ways of handling together any feelings, any difficult feelings that come up.
Yeah, and all right, who's in charge? Who's on first? Are these two other individuals, are the two women allowed to cohabitate and be together, and the man is okay? Is the man still able to go out and find other suitors in addition to the two that they already have? What if it's two men and one woman? What is the dominance there? There is a lot to consider, and it can be very strenuous. And it could be a lot more catastrophic than you think, because you're dividing your time through many people, and you're editing and filtering and adjusting your emotions based upon the person that you're dealing with at that time. It's not necessarily a consistent role. So it can be very challenging. So now we're looking at other relationships. We're looking at heterosexual, we're looking at homosexual relationships. 2 women versus 2 men. I couldn't even imagine myself being with a woman, not because of the thing, but just, again, the emotional, the demands, the expectations, but also the tenderness and the affection. A woman knows what a woman wants. She knows how to push the button, but I'm telling you, she knows how to throw the baby out with the bathwater too, if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I see those relationships are very tender because, number one, being different, being vulnerable, having to deal with society's norms or abnorms, being judged, really always struggling back and forth with who am I really? Am I supposed to be what this religious doctrine says, or my parents say, or society says, or how do I really become me? What do you say to people that struggle in homosexual relationships?
I think there are many people who don't. I have lots of examples around me of really good, well, comfortable working relationships. I remember one couple said when they had their civil partnership that they wanted to dress a particular way so neither one of them looked like a woman or a man, because they didn't want to be pigeonholed to have to play that role or that role. And I think that that's an important thing. It's about your choice. And I love it that it's become more mainstream, massively more mainstream and permissible in the last 20, 30 years than it ever was when I was 20 myself, you know. And I love seeing people being able to express themselves and have the relationship that they want. And again, it needs negotiating. I mean, in a way, it's not different from a heterosexual relationship. The negotiations are still the same. It may be, when we look back, we don't want to be like our parents were. Absolutely. In a heterosexual relationship, you don't want to be necessarily the woman that does the cooking and the cleaning and the man that does the providing. There might be a lot of mixture of roles now. I'm making that the point because that's the sort of tangible thing to do.
I want to be clear.
Yeah. So why isn't it different? Why is it any different for people of the same sex? I don't really see that it's any different. They can choose who they are. They can choose who to be together, how to be together, just like anybody else can.
What about the relationship with children? Children are bullied because of the choices of their parents. They are struggling with their own identity. Do I follow the pattern or the love scene that I see with the individuals that live with me, or do I seek out my own? It's very hard for them to navigate through that landscape, being young and being vulnerable. What would you say to a person that, you know, has children in these relationships? I
think always. I mean, you see damage done to children in heterosexual relationships. I don't necessarily think that it's any better or worse, except for with some sections of society, they will bully. But they'll bully you if you've got one little finger longer than the other, you know. They'll find something. And I think the emotional evolution that we're having in this generation will really wash through, and it will become less and less permissible to bully or intimidate or single out anybody for their sexual proclivities of their parents.
Yeah, I think that is very old school, very rigid, because we are in the days, again, of artificial intelligence. It may not even be man, woman, woman or man. It's going to be artificial intelligence and a human being. You're going to be making love through your forehead with a with a robot. So things are different, but we have to be able to evolve. Things have changed since the turn of time. You talked about people living, 60, 70 years. The Bible tells me they lived 700 years once upon a time. So it is very different. And what I'm hoping that my brains have the capacity and the bandwidth to expand and to grow with it. Don't become more polarized. Don't be more narrow-minded, but be very broadband. You have no idea of what you're missing, the opportunities that lie ahead if you stay shut in and shut down. Heather, you are an amazing gift. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your words, your work with my individuals. Please tell my brains how to get in contact with you, how to work with you, and if there's any current offerings.
Yeah, it's heather@heathergarbutt.com. That is my email address. My website is heathergarbutt.com. There are things on Facebook that you can see. Just find me there. I'm in Newbury. I think it will come up as I'm in Newbury or Swindon on Facebook. And I have my picture of me, I think, in a yellow jacket with roses behind. There may be other Heather Garbutts. Please feel free to contact me. I'm offering Calling in the One, Conscious Uncoupling, and couple coaching for a lifetime of love, which is how to set up a new relationship on a good footing.
Well, you are on stilettos. How about that? Pretty legs. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you are happy and that you have found the love of your life. Brains, I need you to go in and make a commitment right now to like, love, share, and follow Heather as well as myself on The Edge with April Mahoney. We want you to subscribe. We want you to call in, send an email, leave comments. We can only give you what you need if you let us know what you need. And we want to fulfill not only your needs, but your wants and your desires. Thank you so much, Heather. You have been such a gift. Come back and visit me again and let me know what's going on.
I will. That's lovely. Thank you for having me here, April.
Absolutely.
You're a darling.
Thank you. Bye, brains. Have a great day. Be in love.